Borders are great tools to use when you want to visually separate data in an Excel spreadsheet. To insert a border into an Excel spreadsheet, first highlight the cells that you want to insert borders into. In our case, let's do it with the column headers. Then go to the Home tab of the ribbon, choose this drop down menu, which is the Borders drop down. Now, there are a lot of options in here for borders, so why don't you pause your video for a second and take a second to familiarize yourself with all of the different options. Okay, now that you've had a chance to do that, let's put a bottom border on our column headers. Choose bottom border or use the shortcut Alt-HBO. Let's also add a border on our bottom row, which contains our totals. Highlight the data, go to the border button and choose top border, or use the shortcut Alt-HBP. However, on second thought, I think that there are too many borders on this table. It's starting to look a little bit cluttered. Let's undo this using Ctrl Z. Instead, I'm just going to double underline my numerical values in this bottom row. To do this, first highlight the values that you want to double underline, choose the drop-down menu here, and then choose double underlined. Now, these values are visually separated without creating too much clutter. Okay, let's take a step back. Borders are used to visually separate data from each other. And when I look at the data that we're currently working with, I see three major types of data: recorded numbers from our bakery, and then calculated fields that we calculated based on those recorded numbers. Let's use a fill color, also known as a background color, to visually separate these two major categories. Starting with the recorded numbers from our store's performance, let's choose a color. Let's first highlight the columns that we want to highlight, go up to this icon, which is fill color, and choose a color. I typically don't use these theme colors because I find them to be a little too gaudy. I typically stick with the lighter colors, which can be found at the top here. I like how light blue looks, so I'm going to stick with that. For my cells with the calculations, I'm actually going to leave them without the color. I think that having the color on my recorded items is enough to visually separate. There you have it. Not only is my table much more readable, it's also much easier to understand for someone who might be looking at it without context. One last thing that I want to cover is how to remove and insert grid lines. Sometimes you might want to remove grid lines from your spreadsheet once you're done with your analysis and you want to share it out. To do this, go to the View tab of your ribbon and then uncheck Grid Lines. When you click, these grid lines now disappear, but everything else should remain. If you want them to return, simply click it again for them to reappear. However, I like it without grid lines, so I'm going to stick with this.